can you believe it? We're already halfway through 2019, so I would like to share a few progress in my Spanish reading goal, highlights of my Spanish language learning journey during quarter number 2, and then also I would like to get feedback from you of a potential idea for first 1,000 hours in the future. My name is Franklin, and this is first1000hours.com. I'm here to inspire and motivate you to complete your first 1,000 hours of your language learning marathon. I don't teach languages, but I share an out-of-the-box mentality to help you learn languages on your own in a real-world context. So before I go into my progress, I want to ask you a question. How are your language learning goals going that you set in New Year's? Now, I know this might be a crazy question to ask. We're halfway through, and you could say, Franklin, who is really still sticking through with their language learning goals? But I think it's a relevant question to ask, because why do we have to set our goal and forget about it? Why can't we just continue to have goals in language learning throughout the year instead of just for a month or a few days? And so how are they going for you? And if you did not set a goal in New Year's, you might have set a goal in maybe March or something like that. How is your progress going from when you set the goal until now? All right, so I just want to give you a little background of what my goal was. My goal is to read 12 Spanish books this year. So in quarter number 1, which was from January to March of 2019, I read around 340 to 350 pages. So that meant that I was just still on book number 1 in quarter number 1, because I chose this book that had about 499 pages, and that was called Hogar Cristiano. And so I finished that book in quarter number 2, and quarter number 2 is was from April to June of 2019. And in that time, I just finished one book, and I'm still on my second book, which is El Deseado de Todas las Gentes. And that book is 800 pages, over 800 pages long. And so it's a pretty big book. So I chose to do or to read 2 very big, very long books. I was very ambitious, but I think in one sense that's a good thing. I just have to be a little bit more dedicated to my goal that I have. And so in quarter number 2, I read approximately 406 pages in those books. And so that brings me to a total of reading around 746 pages in those 2 books. Now, that is something that I'm thankful for. It's a little victory. I remember last year, I thought it would be exciting to read 450 pages in the whole year. And so half the year has passed, and I've read approximately 746 pages. So that is an accomplishment to be excited about. But at the same time, I have a goal. And my goal is specific, measurable, I believe attainable, but it has to have some work to be attainable, and other things like that. So I have a specific goal. I know that I could have a random goal and say something like, I want to be fluent in Spanish. And I've talked about that in a previous video. Fluency does not have a goal. And because it's not specific, it's not measurable, then I can never attain that goal. And so I like to pursue Spanish with goals. And so I chose to have a goal of something that I need to push myself in. And so that's why I chose to read 12 books. And so I also wanted to talk about some of the struggles I've had. And I haven't had a regular bedtime. And I think that's really impactful, because I could say, well, I just need more time. Like if I had 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, I could accomplish the goal. But really, I think it's more about how I utilize my time and how I organize my day versus how much time I have. And I still believe that's the case, even though I have 6 months left. But I wanted to say this. I know, because I didn't do the best in quarter number 2 as far as getting to another book read and things like that. I know that I have set myself up for quarter number 3 to, maybe not make the steps necessary to read 12 books. And it might come to a point where I actually don't read 12 books. I'm very aware of the real possibility that this might not happen, but that does not mean I can't strive to do better in quarter number 3. And quarter number 3 will be from July to September. So I can push myself and do a little bit better. And I think one thing I need to focus on is going to bed at a good time on a regular basis, and that will be helpful. And then another thing that I read from, or I saw from Think Media, is a quote from Think Media. Heather Torres was talking about this. I like to look at Think Media because they have a channel that also talks about YouTube tips and strategies, and I like to really learn more about YouTube and all of this. But it said, a study said people are 42% more likely to achieve goals if they write them down on a regular basis. And so I think I'm going to have to go back to using something like this. And Language Learning Lover, I'm sure you'll like this because I want to go back to using a paper notebook and writing down my goals. And I think it's very important for me. I have this big goal. I kind of talked about this in quarter number 2 as well. Like when I was recapping quarter number 1, I talked about how I wanted to do something like this, and I did. But guess what? I didn't do it. I didn't really write down my daily progress. I did a little bit of that in June, but I think that I want to be a little bit more intentional of that, and not just writing down progress, but having micro goals. And I want to illustrate that with a story that you might think, how is this related? I was in 7th grade. I was on the track team, and I was running the 400 or 440. Basically, that was something where you run a quarter of a mile, 1 lap. And I was at my first meet, and I just wanted to give it all I could. And so I was running, and I saw this person that was going faster than me. And I'm like, you know what? I need to go faster than him, or at least keep up with him. And so I kept up with him. Well, he was still ahead of me, but I basically wasn't too far behind him. I might have been a little bit behind, but I was not too far behind him, about maybe 25% into that lap. And then I realized, my body was telling me, Franklin, you don't have any more energy, basically. And I could not keep up with him, and I just struggled to finish that lap. And so what I got from that is I have to pace myself, or I had to pace myself when I wanted to run, and even if it was just a quarter of a mile. And then I used that pacing philosophy to start out where I kind of just didn't use all my energy all at once, but I try to do that at the end, and I could build up momentum over time. And I think the same thing is with reading. I can say, all right, well, okay, I didn't finish like this little micro goal that I had, so I'll just put it off until Sunday, because on Sunday I'm not working, and then I could just read all these pages all at once. But then Sunday comes and I get busy and I don't do it. I don't do like this massive goal that I might have for myself. But I know, and I've known this since I read El Camino a Cristo, but sometimes I forget that reading in small chunks, having specific goals matter more than trying to just put all my energy in reading something all at once. And so even though I have just 6 months, if I utilize my time now and saying, all right, well, what is it going to take me to get to the goal of reading 12 books? What does that mean in the amount of pages? And so one thing that I will be changing is I'm not going to be striving to read another 800-page book in Spanish this year. Okay, and so one of my books that I want to read, after I read El Deseado de Todas las Gentes, which is my second book that I'm reading about the life of Christ, I want to read it's like Esperanza para las Familias, or something like that. It's called Hope for the Families, or a similar title. I forgot exactly the exact title, but that book is around 76 pages. And so that's in a digital format, so I can get the PDF of that and then put that into LingQ, and then LingQ helps me read books created for Spanish speakers faster. And so I should be able to read that book really quickly, relatively speaking, versus the first 2 books that I read. And I was thinking about this too. I wish I had made my goal a goal of reading pages versus books, because if I had just read 100-page books, instead of like basically a 500-page book and over 800-page book, and things like that, I would have read around 7 books, at least 7 books, at this time period right now. But I maybe was a little overly ambitious. And then another book right after that one about hope for the families. I want to read this one, El Gozo de Vivir, and this is a health book. This book is around 115 pages, and so this is something that is doable, that I can read. And so this is a paperback book, so I would not be uploading this to LingQ or whatever. I don't know of a way to upload a paperback book into LingQ, so it has to be digital. But anyway, I will be reading that book based on context, and so that means I might not understand every single word, but I want to get the gist of the context. And if I feel like I need to maybe look up a word on Google Translate, I'll do that. But that should be helpful for myself and set me up well for going into the fourth quarter. And then I might be able to read another book, I'm not sure, but at least reading El Deseado de Todas las Gentes and those 2 books will help me to make good progress, I believe. And there's other books I want to read. I still do want to read Depression, The Way Out in Spanish, but I think I will save that for the fourth quarter. That's a book that has around 300 pages. So that's an overly ambitious book, I think, as well. But I said I was going to do that in the beginning of this year, and so I still want to kind of at least put effort in doing that. So, yeah, I also want you can feel free to ask me during this third quarter, Franklin, how is your reading progress going? And I should be able to give you my honest answer about that as well. Okay, so I'm trying to be authentic and transparent here in things. And sometimes, you encounter challenges, you encounter setbacks and things like that in the journey. But the big thing for myself is to keep on moving forward. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about some of the highlights from quarter number 2. One of them is I still sometimes go to a Spanish church, and I'm kind of like a little fly in the wall because I go to my English church, English speaking church, and then after I finish those activities, then the Spanish church has things still going on, so I go there and I'll sit in the back, but I'll get some information or whatever from them, and I'm in an all Spanish environment. I remember one time I went to the Spanish church and the service was only had like 15 minutes left. And so I went there, and then afterwards I was able to eat with everybody. And so that was nice. And then I was able to talk to someone in Spanish, but then he talked to me in English. So I got like English or whatever. That's like a term that my language motivational partner made up. But it's like I speak in Spanish, someone speaks to me in English. But hey, I got to be able to speak in Spanish at least. And I was in an all Spanish environment, and then so that was a win-win situation for myself. And then something else that happened last quarter is I went to my biggest Spanish event that I ever went to, and that's when I went to this event where there are like a lot of Spanish people or Hispanics from different Spanish churches that come together in a gathering called like a camp meeting where they come to worship God together. And so I went to that, and I was with hundreds of different Spanish-speaking people, and so that was nice. And I learned also that there is an event that also happens in Oklahoma where around 1,000 or more Spanish-speaking people come. And so I have in the back of my mind, I might want to do that next year. That is going to happen in this month, but I was not really prepared for that. But maybe next year I might be. I'm also wanting to go to a church event where there will be around 70,000 people coming together in July of next year. And so I really want to go to that. I'm not sure if I will be able to. So at least I have another option of going to a Spanish event in Oklahoma. And then I could just take off time from work potentially and go to that, which might be something I might do. And then I've also been working with a team to help translate 2 more Bible-based bookmarks from English into Spanish. So I did that last year, and I talked about how I needed to stop thinking of myself as a professional beginner, and I was giving a challenge to you. And after I did that video, then the same person that had asked me to do a translation of bookmarks last year said, hey, would you like to do some more translations? And so I said, okay, I'll do it by God's grace. And I have been more serious about that project than I was last year. And I'm thankful that, you know, I can pray to the Lord and he can help me. And then also I use Google Translate definitely still. And then also I have a team of Spanish speaking people that I can ask to help me with that project as well. And I'm able to make mistakes in that project, and I would like to share more with you about how I'm doing this and all of that, and things I've still been able to learn about that project, but I'll save some of that for another video. And I've also learned how to read and listen to a book, a Spanish book, on my phone using LingQ. So I'm able to do that at the same time, and so that's pretty cool. And I will be doing a tutorial video about that in my next video, and I think that you might find that very interesting, and that has been helpful to me because it makes reading a little bit more interesting when I can hear a Spanish speaker be able to speak and narrate the book as well. So I also wanted to share with you a goal that I have not talked about in any video previous, and that is that I am thankful that I am over 60% finished with doing 52 public videos for First 1,000 Hours. I have a personal goal of finishing that by the end of this year. And so you might think, okay, you know, what's the big deal about that? I in my mind, I become serious about First 1,000 Hours after I do 52 videos. Now I know that some people like upload one video to YouTube and then they say, okay, I have a channel. But I realize that in this day and age, in 2019, just having one video, in my mind, in my opinion, is not a channel, because someone can go to that, you know, that place where that video is held, and they can see that video and they're like, okay, well, what is this? What is this all about? But you get to understand what a channel is about when the channel uploads a series of videos. And for myself, I define that as 52 videos. And so I wanted to be in that process. And then that brings me to basically the future idea that I potentially have. And again, I would like your feedback about that. And that is to open up access to the First 1,000 Hour community to some things I have been sending to people for about a year about my language progress, language learning strategies, my thoughts on that, maybe conversations that I've had with Connie, and just other experiences that are easier for me to share on WhatsApp versus having to do like a video on YouTube and sit down and talk to you and all this, have a script. It's just easier for me to be able to speak and do like just an audio message where I don't have to look into a camera or anything like that. And maybe I might speak in Spanish for like 10 minutes, or I might be speaking of my opinion on a certain topic that I might have shared with Connie, and then I might think, oh man, maybe I should share this with other people as well. Or I could share pictures like I wish I could just share with you pictures of a little bit of the things that I've been doing with my bookmark project, and then some of the things that I share with other people already about that. And I think that would be interesting to some of you. And then also I was sharing video clips of the big Spanish event that I went to, you know, just maybe 20-second video clips or things like that, or longer videos that might be a minute or something like that, that I can easily just record and then send on WhatsApp. And so what I could do after I finish 52 videos is potentially open up that access, and that would allow you to get that content from me. I would probably also include recommendations on paid and also free things that I might think are relevant to people's language learning journey. And WhatsApp would be one directional, meaning that I would share information, but I would not be responding to any WhatsApps. I think that would be overwhelming for me to do. But I can just do what I can do. And so the phone I have right now, it probably would be just dedicated to WhatsApp. And then I would have my personal number on another phone. And then that's just how I would be able to do like something called WhatsApp for business and do different things that I think would be helpful. And so would that be something that would interest you? Would you want to have that extra access of, you could say, with me and First 1,000 Hours, in that manner. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to do any, I wouldn't want to do any other YouTube videos. This would be in addition to doing other YouTube videos and all of that as well. Like I said, I've already been doing WhatsApp and YouTube at the same time. I just haven't allowed the First 1,000 Hour community to really participate in that up to this point. And then also I would like to share with you as well that if you would like to know more about my language learning progress in 2019 and my big goal and different things like that, you can click the video on the screen. And then if you look at this video like a week from now, then you should see another video on your screen about the tutorial about LingQ and how I'm able to read and listen to things at the same time with content that I choose. My name is Franklin, and this is First 1,000hours.com.